No, I'm gonna rant about that quick before we get into MMA because anytime the radio comes on, it feels like half the time you're not actually listening to any music. It's just people talking. And then when they finally do play a good song, they cut it in between, and then there's just some annoying guy, jumping in and rambling about his life, and then they bring some cooler in that no one cares about. It's like, let me listen to music. Radio is the most irrelevant thing ever. And I'm like, is that even a hot take? I don't even think that's even a crazy take these days. But just a pet peeve that I was reminded of the other day when I was in the car, and I was just like, this just sucks. Like, let me just Bluetooth and play my music. That's been the summary of my week, actually. Just frustration, rounded off by a pretty poor UFC card. But what about you? How was your
Why frustrating?
Well, I mean, stuff like that, just little pet peeves. YouTube video didn't do too well, which sucked. Because I spent a lot of work on it. In fact, I rushed to get out early. I put out a day early, so I put basically double time in because I wanted to get the jump on it because the car was on Saturday, and I was like, maybe it'll get more traction in that time. Ended up being complete backfiring completely. Video did horribly. Didn't even get off the ground really. And kind of frustrating because no vindication for a lot of hard work, which I thought was a great video. I was really proud of the edit. I'm getting a lot more slick with my edits. Just storytelling so much better. I can feel it. So I was like, I wanted to reap the benefits of putting in a better shift. More work, harder work, and a better product. But we didn't get that, and that's fine. I accepted it after a couple of days. I was like, it's whatever. We move on to the next one. Didn't help that the actual card on Saturday night was pretty dire. But I'll get your opinions on that as well. What about as I was saying, what about you? What was your week saying?
Yeah, it was good. I went and filmed a podcast yesterday in London. I did it before. We went for 2.5 hours. We had a good conversation, and the audio didn't record. So went and done that again, but that was cool. That was fun when I had a chat. And apart from that, I came back from Amsterdam this week, so I was there for a couple of days recording some content. There's an event out there called LFL that I'm going to go and do some work with. I'm going to go and work at that event. So I wanted to record some content to tag them in before I went and for a little trip as well. So I went and done that. And I'll probably be going out there in February time, late Feb, to create some content and just a ton of food videos. I liked it around there. I had some powerful snacks. Yeah, I went to some good spots, and that was fun. It's a cool city. It's a super cool city, especially from London.
I'll ask you actually,
because it's only 40
just
minutes.
to jump in? Oh. Did you try? This is very good. There was a sandwich place. It's like really popular there, mainly because it has reason. Say again.
Chun.
I don't know if that's the name. They do like Italian, or like they were like these sort of deli sandwiches. They're like deli sandwiches in this tiny little like sort of shop. There's a big queue.
I went there.
Yeah, I think that was the same one we're talking about. Wait, what was it called? Let me just look it up and then
0-0, and it most certainly is that, and it was unbelievable. It was one of those super simple places where they had about 3 things on the menu and they only done these sandwiches and they were unbelievable. The bread was immaculate. They had this thick mozzarella. I had sort of Parma ham and a red pepper pesto. It was absolutely delicious.
I think that's exactly what I had. If we're talking about the same place, that's the exact same sandwich.
Mate, it was unbelievable. I actually went there and there was a queue that looked like about an hour and a half deep. And I thought, you know what?
Did you go around like a little circle in the queue? Do you know what I mean? It's like a little conveyor belt.
No, I didn't. I don't know. I don't know what.
I don't know, man.
What flipping shape I queued in. I just went and got a sandwich. It was busy. I left. I came back and I went again. But it was unreal. It's fun. Obviously, if you live in Europe or especially if you live in the UK, it's only an hour flight, so it's a nice quick trip to just. I don't know. I don't think it was that expensive, to be perfectly honest, but it was a nice quick trip to get there and get back within a couple of days, film some content, get back to the workflow pretty quickly. Traveling takes it out of me, even if it's a close trip.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, it proper takes it out of me. So I had about a day where obviously I was still working, but I was working from bed, most certainly. But yeah, so I've got that coming up probably February. And then just after that, a week after, I go to Thailand and then I'll be working at the 1FC event. So my game plan for that is, obviously Lumpini Stadium has so much rich culture. The aesthetic is just unbelievable. I would like to organise a videographer when I'm out there. So I'm going to get a videographer to follow me round. So my game plan for that is hopefully to get the videographer and then to get some personalised one-on-one food tours for the content as well. And then I'm going to sort of cross-contaminate that with the 1FC event and create quite a lot of nice content, hopefully. And then I'm going to stay in Thailand, I think, for about 4 weeks and just make as much content as I possibly can, food, training, Muay Thai, travel under those brackets. So that's what I've been up to this week. A little bit of planning, a little bit of structuring what I'm doing and just working quite frantically. But other than that, it's been a good week. I'm still breathing and I'm still doing what I love. So it's been good on that front. Obviously, we had the card yesterday, which we may as well, or the day before, sorry, which we may as well jump into. What did you think? What did you think of UFC
Pretty naff,
297? You thought?
Yeah, it's not great. It was all right. The prelims were fun.
Bit harsh.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but I thought the prelims were way better than the actual main card.
True.
I don't know. I'm gonna just jump straight into the discourse of the main event because I can't lie. I'm hearing all sorts of things. Twitter, MMA Twitter has probably been, in fact, MMA, just the entire MMA social space has probably been the worst 2-week period I've ever seen ever. Just people not shutting up about anything. And it was just exhausting. So by the time the fight came around, I just kind of wanted it to be over and done with.
You've been grumpy. I think this is the problem. I think you're the problem here. I think the space is exactly how it usually is.
No, it is not. I'm sorry. It's made me a worse human just as a result. I'm just getting annoyed at things, and I just like, God, people don't shut up. But it was the fight itself was all right, but I had a lot of people talking about it being one of the best title fights of all time, and I was like, I don't know what I'm seeing. I would say it was fun, but let's not get it twisted. It's not anything close to being an all-timer. As for the decision, I thought it was the correct one. I feel like I'm just judging from maybe it's a loud minority that I'm hearing, but I feel like I might be in the minority there. I've seen a lot of people saying Strickland 3-2. I had it 2-3-4 Duplessis, 1 and 5 clear rounds for Strickland. But I wasn't mad. You could have gone either way. But people acting like it was a robbery and saying, "Oh, they didn't want Strickland as champ because it's not PC and he's not politically correct." Like, what are you talking about, man? Absolute waffle. But yeah, I thought it was a close fight. It was a fun fight. I thought the right man won, but I wasn't mad either way.
I think there were a lot of people upset about the decision either way, but I think the truth of it was a seriously close fight. There were a little bit more striking volume from Sean Strickland. Then it comes down to the argument of what did more damage. You could argue it was Dricus, but it was quite unfortunate because Sean did get a head clash. That was actually what caused the blood above the eye, which obviously had an impact. So it was a shame. It was a good fight. It was a close fight. I don't know if I was on the edge of my seat at any point thrilled. It was fun and I enjoyed it, but it certainly was not the top 5 title fights of all time. I have no idea where that narrative came from. No idea whatsoever. And I also don't know why Sean Strickland abandoned what he done very well, which was that teep kick that he used so much against Adesanya. And Eric Nixick was calling for it in the corner, but he just never went back to it. And I don't know whether that was maybe he was deterred by the fact that Dricus was level changing and he didn't want him to potentially catch it. But I don't know what that was, but he abandoned that and it went straight boxing. And it's always going to be very hard to win 5 rounds against a mixed martial artist just boxing. So, yeah, it was a fun fight. I do think that probably sets up for the UFC, Dricus Duplessis versus Israel Adesanya next in Africa. There's a narrative behind it. There's a big WWE build-up, which we've spoke about before. That's the narrative these days of the UFC. A lot of people asking for a rematch. I couldn't care less about a rematch.
I agree. I don't want another one.
Don't want to see a rematch every time there's a close fight. Yes, it's annoying being Sean Strickland. Yes, he was a bit unfortunate maybe not to get the nod. Yes, it was frustrating that he got head butted and couldn't see. But I don't need to see a rematch. I think they may fight each other down the line, but I'm not trying to see that second fight straight off the bat. For someone that never defended their belt, I'm not there to see
Agreed.
that. Yeah? You on the same boat
there?
Yeah,
I completely agree. Yeah, okay, absolutely. I just don't want... sorry, I can't give you much of a debate there, but I completely agree. I don't think we need to stagnate. And I say that. I don't really want to see the... I mean, the Adesanya fight makes sense. It's not something I really want to see though.
It doesn't,
Because
though,
I
does
feel
it?
like, yeah, I mean, it does for the narrative's sake. Like, it will sell
Correct.
pay-per-views, but let's be real. I've seen enough of Adesanya in the title picture. He needs to get another win in the books. He just lost his belt without defending it. You know, obviously we can take his
True.
first reign into account,
True.
but you've got to give these other contenders a chance. Otherwise, you just get a stagnated division, and I don't think anyone wants to see that. So personally, I don't know who you throw in there. Maybe Whitaker if he comes off a win against Costa, but I don't know.
I think the
I
fight
think
to
that's a fun
make.
fight.
I think the fight to make is Izzy versus Chimaev.
Oh yeah, of course. Hamzat's in the picture, isn't he?
That's the fight to make.
Yeah, I like that a lot. We've talked about that before, and that's actually a closer. We agreed that that was a closer fight than I think people might suggest. And I think after Shimaev's recent performance against Usman, you know, cardio could definitely be a big issue for him in that fight. You know, I think Izzy could definitely dictate that pace pretty easily. Again, it's just a matter of the takedown. That's the reality of that fight is if Shimaev can get the takedown. But yeah, I like that a lot. I expect them to do the Duplessis fight, but we'll have to see. Who did you actually have winning though in
No
main
idea.
event there?
No one knows.
You didn't have a winner?
No one knows. People
Yeah.
always give their scorecards online as if that holds any relevancy. Number
I was
one
just
to the
curious.
outcome. Sorry, I'm not attacking you. I'm just.
No.
It's
I
more
got
of it's just true though. It's true. Everyone's sitting there at home for the most part, usually with friends, usually they're intoxicated, usually they're not paying much attention,
Very
maybe
good.
they're on their phone, maybe they zone in here and out. And above all of that, they don't have a clue about the criteria because the judges don't even have a clue about the criteria, which is why the first round should not have gone to Movsar Evloev. That was just
Oh my god, yeah.
silly officiating, not officiating, sorry, judging, because I feel like it's such a
I
played
agree
out
completely.
narrative now that we know that wrestling with no damage or little to no control is a change of position. So in what world does he win round one? Or
I
round
agree.
3?
He was outstruck. Yeah, no, no, I think round 3 was definitely the clear one for Alan. But yeah, I'm actually. All right, let me go with this. I was actually glad in hindsight that they gave it to Evelev, and I'll just explain why. Don't before you shoot me. The reason I say that is because I had a 2-leg ACCA on Alan and Mike Mallet. So you can imagine my frustration if Alan won, only for Mike Mallet to absolutely fumble the bag with 15 seconds to go against Neil fucking Magny. So in that sense, I was glad he lost in hindsight. But I agree, completely ridiculous decision. It was a close fight. Like I wouldn't say it was a robbery, but
Nope.
I feel like if you're talking purely on damage, which Dominic Cruz was harping on about the entire night with some horrendous commentary, man. I'm sorry. In fact, I'm going to jump into that real quick because irrespective of that, did you pick up on that moment in the main event where John Anik finally just shut up Dominic Cruz when he was going on about the cut? Apparently, a cuts are a 5-round damage criteria. That scoring for makes, you know what I'm saying? Makes no sense. Ridiculous.
I'm usually zoned in to the commentary because I listen with my headphones on. However, I was actually at one of my friends and there was a couple of people there, so it was on, but I couldn't make it out clearly, unfortunately. So I didn't really catch much commentary all night, so I can't really even add my 2 cents to that. So I saw the discourse online about it.
Yeah.
Everyone was upset about Cruz, but then they are every week. There's nothing new. Everyone is always really upset.
It was
with
pretty
Dominic
bad
Cruz.
though, even by his standards. I generally think he's actually quite a good analyst.
Agreed.
But he does have I don't like listening to him. I think he's a bit up his own arse, but he's a good analyst. But it was a big fumble. He was going on about how, I can't remember which fight it was they were talking about. I believe it was the Allen fight. He was like, but that cut's going to win him the fight. As he was talking in the 3rd round, it's like, because of that cut, he's won the fight. And he kept going on about it later on in the night as well, talking about as if a cut is a damage representative for the whole fight rather than the round it was actually inflicted.
To play devil's advocate,
Weird.
to play devil's advocate without having any context of actually listening to it, I think sometimes he gives opinions which there's validity to a certain extent, but sometimes he just doesn't maybe explain exactly, and maybe he means that from an angle of, because that's so prevalent, that's going to stand out in the judges' minds a lot, and that may end up winning him the fight, because every time they're watching the rounds, it's going to sway in that person's favour because they see the damage. So maybe he meant it from that angle, in which case I would actually agree, because that definitely happens. When you see a bad superficial cut, even if the person's not necessarily... the opponent, isn't necessarily doing more damage. I've seen rounds be given to that person just because of the visuals not always there. Maybe that wasn't the angle he was going at, but maybe that was sort of where he was going with it. In which case, there is an argument for that. But yeah, in regards to scoring criteria, then obviously no, it doesn't.
And I will speak on that, actually, just scoring criteria in general. I think that's just something that we need.
So
get
boring.
More clarity on it. So I know it's a boring discussion, but I'm so sick of it, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's not a case of the actual scoring criteria. I don't think there's really an issue with that. It's just the judges. Like they actually, I feel like they don't know the criteria, or they view it differently to another one. Each other. So just more consistency. But yeah, we don't need to ramble on about judges.
Easiest thing in the world to fix.
Is it?
To let me change the word fix. It's the easiest thing in the world to increase the consistency. They sit
to explain
in an office, blacked out, with many screens.
Oh yeah,
no commentary, with every angle they could possibly wish for, and flipping the 10 golden rules of judging on the wall. I guarantee you that improves the efficiency and consistency of judging. The worst place to watch a fight is ringside. The worst is to watch it from the cage. You get terrible angles, you can't see the full fight, and then when you watch it back on the replay, it looks completely different to what you watch live. I've seen enough cage side now to know that, and I've also asked other people how they feel like watching it live. They also say the same thing, and I'm talking about coaches in people's corners and getting a full perspective of the fight.
Totally agree.
That's the easiest fix ever. So we had that. We have to touch upon the co-main.
It's rough, isn't it? All I was thinking of, right, between
was the people that paying $80.
No. My immediate thought was actually just visualizing what it would look like if you threw Amanda Nunes in with either of them. Because my God, that would be sanctioned murder. It was pretty poor. I can't lie. I will say, I will give, in particular, Raquel Pennington the resolve. I thought she kept a pretty good pace for 25 minutes. So I'll give her that. I thought her cardio was pretty impressive, but let's be real. Technique wise, fight wise, it just wasn't. It wasn't there. Let's not sugarcoat it. I think women's MMA is a progressing sport. It hasn't had as much time to develop as the men's. I think that's understandable, but I think we'd hope for a bit of a higher standard for a championship fight, which is a shame. It is a shame it's like that, and I just want to see more depth. The strawweight division is such a stacked roster, but bantamweight, bantamweight used to be the sort of premier one of the three. So interesting to see that it's basically a graveyard now, which is quite sad. I don't know where this title picture lies for me. Juliana Pena is probably going to come in and take that belt right off her hands, but that doesn't exactly have me excited. I'm just saying what I think is going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not jumping at the guns. You go, yeah, Juliana Pena. It's like, I don't know.
I don't know how to articulate my thoughts here.
There's not much to say. You know what I mean?
Listen, every fight I watch is always prefaced with the fact that I've got respect for these people to go in there. I've got respect for the people that have dedicated their life. Raquel Pennington has been in this game or even the UFC, for 14 years or something ridiculous. So this has been a long time in the making, and it's a seriously impressive feat to just scratch and claw your way to the top of absolutely anything for that period of time. So complete utmost respect, 100%. Now, I can't sit here and lie. I have all the respect in the world for her for doing that, accomplishing that. She's got the belt, is going to leverage opportunities, she's going to get bigger paydays, she's going to get pay-per-view points and whatnot. But I'm sitting there thinking, how in the world is this the pinnacle of this sport at this weight class, and this is for a title? Not to mention, people are paying $80, $90 for the privilege to watch this card, and this is the standard. I'm not shading the commitment or their endeavor, nothing. But the standard, we have to call
I agree.
it for what it is, was, let's be honest, quite shocking. There's no one that didn't watch that. Even the commentary, even John Anik, as amazing as John Anik was, had to acknowledge what we were watching. And he was sitting there saying, Raquel and also Silva, they're not quite the full package yet. It's a title fight. They're 30 fights into their career. You don't have to be the full package, but you have to at least have some redeeming qualities so that the commentary can say a couple of right things about you. And then to make it worse, don't get me wrong, it went 5 rounds and it was a tough pace, but Silva just showed her inexperience at every level, because every time she got even near a submission, she jumped on it. She was going body lock tight. She was going gassing her arms out on submissions that weren't really there. And that happened multiple times. So I knew she was going to be tired. So that comes down to a little bit of inexperience. But then to be in a title fight that let's be honest, she's been giving it the big one for a while now.
Yeah.
For a long time. To be in a title fight where in the 5th round, in the last 20 seconds, that you're not potentially, you were losing by quite a landslide, or at least by a good margin, to then lay on your back with your hands on your head, just taking soft leg kicks. Let's move on from that fight.
Yeah, I think the less about it, the better. I mean, in terms of looking ahead for that division, as I said, Juliana Peña's probably option. That looks like what they're going to do.
That's where we're at right now. I like Juliana Peña because she's a funny personality, and I respect her. When she goes in there, she puts it on the line. Yes, she's not the most pretty in regards to skill-wise. She's no Rose Namajunas. She's no Alexander Volkanovski. But she goes in there, she talks a big game, and she backs it up. And she walked down Amanda Nunes for 5 rounds, got her licks, and carried on walking forward and tried to win. And
she did beat her the first time.
After beating her, exactly. So all props to her. And now we're in a position where people have been, for so long, people have been slandering her. Now we're in a position where people are clamouring to see her fight for the title because she's infinitely more exciting than what we just watched.
And people forget, there was a time in that second Nunes fight where she was pretty close on an armbar, I believe in the 5th round.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people remember that. That had me very excited. So I got to say, and since that fight, she's played the heel role very well. She knows exactly what she's doing.
Yeah,
she's been so insufferable in the best way possible. So I respect it. She plays the game. I never thought I'd be saying I'd be looking forward to a Juliana Peña fight, but here we are. This is 2024.
Amanda Nunes came out on an interview and said to Megan O'Leary that she's eyeing up a return. And of course she is after that title picture, because she's thinking, I'm going to go in there and absolutely smoke this girl in 1 or 2 rounds top with my belt on the line and get a big payday. Why not? So I think Amanda Nunes is more than likely going to make a return.
This is maybe playing devil's advocate here a little bit, but I almost feel like I don't want Nunes to come back. Is that crazy?
No, I don't.
Is it? Because that's what I'm saying. I don't really want to see it. I was like, let's just let the division grow, because obviously we're gonna have some shit-stained fights like that. Let's be real. But I feel like you got to wade through those to actually get to something new. So seeing Nunes just batter cans over and over, I don't really want to go back to that era. All I want is Shevchenko Nunes 3. I can die a happy man once I have that. Unfortunately, it's never going to happen. All right, actually, I'll tell you what. Nunes demolishes Pennington. Shevchenko beats Grasso in the trilogy fight. Then they do the super fight at bantamweight. And then whoever wins, double champ, whatever, I don't know. That is the ideal scenario. And it should have happened a long time ago. I'm sorry. That is if that fight never happens, that is one of my most anticipated fights ever. And I don't know about you, how you feel about that, but I've always been on the side of Shevchenko getting robbed in that rematch that they had. So I feel it's just unfinished business.
Unfinished business is Mike Malott in the 3rd round. That's unfinished business.
That's unfinished business.
That's unfinished business. So much so that I completely backed Mike Malott going into this. Not downplaying or
Same.
diminishing the skills of Neil Magny, by the way. I know exactly what he's capable of. Exactly what he's capable of. I just held Mike Malott to a higher regard in regards to I always backed his skill set and I knew he was very, very good. But it was going to be tough to finish Neil Magny. He goes out, round 1, does his job. Round 2, does his job. He's in the corner. Neil Magny's in the corner for the 3rd. And his corner, this is terrible, but I have to be transparent. His corner's talking to him. And in my head, I actually remember saying, I don't know why they're trying to pep him up. But I remember actually thinking, this guy's words are enthusiastic as so they should be. I'm not downplaying that. But I remember thinking, there is no chance this man is coming out in the 3rd and just knocking Mike Malott out. The thing that's most impressive, as I was saying about Neil Magny, is the fact that for the last 15 years or whatever it is, he's been in the top 15 in the UFC. And to get into the UFC is one thing. To win in the UFC is a whole nother ball game. To be in the rankings is a crazy achievement in itself that I think people don't even realise. But to stay there with longevity and fight all the best up-and-coming guys consistently. He had a year where he had 5 fights in a year. It's absolutely insane. So, yeah, Neil Magny deserves a lot of respect because he's been doing this dance for a minute and he turns back another contender. And the next one I think he's going to face up against is Michael Morales.
Great fight. I feel for him in a way, sort of feeding him to another hungry up-and-comer. But yeah, that's his job. I don't know if you saw this stat, but he's never lost 2 fights in a row since, well, he has, but not since 2013. So even if he's had a loss, he's always responded with a win, which is quite incredible when you actually think about it. At his age, his longevity, fighting as long as he had. And I think that puts him, I believe, isn't he number 2 in terms of total most wins in the UFC?
Up there.
Or something like that. He's very much up there. Yeah, he's tied for 4th most wins. I don't know if that's up to date with 22. So maybe it is. But still, very impressive. Speaks to his longevity. Color me surprised, and I'll hold that bit of humble pie. I can't lie. I thought Malott was going to run through him. Looked like that was going to happen. But in front of, the opposition crowd as well, on that stage, everyone's writing you off. You've got to give him credit. That's that veteran experience kicking in that Malott just, doesn't have. But he'll bounce back. I think he's hungry. He's up and coming. I think that's just something to learn from. That comes with experience because he's only had a few fights, in his career, so not much. So yeah, plenty of time for him to rise up. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be up there within a year or two. But yeah, credit to Magny and Morales, as you said. That's a fun fight. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
It was obviously going to be one I'm saying Michael Morales is going to win, but I will have to give Magny a little bit more of some respect. I think when that fight rolls around, if it does. Yeah, I have to give him the full credit. I mean, what was the other fight on 297? There's one more we're missing, I believe.
They absolutely flopped the Canadians. They went 2-7, I believe.
Yeah, all the men lost. Only the women won. So actually, I will say before. I mean, there was the Chris Curtis fight, but honestly, I'm not that bothered about that. But I will say the one fight I was actually very impressed with. Gillian Robertson looked very good.
Yeah,
I think she's how many is she on? 3 straight? Or maybe I'm
Mate, her jiu-jitsu's nasty.
I say that girl, she did lose the last one, but
Poliana Viana actually done very well to survive as long as she did. I was actually super surprised she didn't get submitted because Gillian Robertson's jiu-jitsu is nasty, and she just goes out and subs people on a regular with aggressive submissions. So I was surprised to see the TKO, but I was actually even more surprised to see that she didn't manage to get a submission because she found herself in some good spots. And talking about getting in some good spots, Sam Patterson got in a good spot pretty quickly, which I was happy to
Very
see.
happy about. After seeing him getting laid out live, that was quite sad.
Yeah,
I have to say that was. I can't remember who he was fighting. That I remember his name. But he was a dangerous guy, big strong hands. But yeah, I remember watching that. He had a lot of backing in the O2 that night, and just seeing him getting laid out, it kind of just set a bit of a scary tone, which thankfully wasn't replicated that night. But yeah, it's good to see him get back in the win column. I saw a lot of people picking against him actually this week, because I feel like when you have that long frame and you're not really a huge power puncher, people worry about your chin. But moving up to welterweight, I think definitely helped him in that, because I think the weight cut was probably a little bit too much for him at lightweight, which is why he got clipped.
It wasn't the weight cut, really. Just from knowing him personally, speaking to him, seeing him in real life, sort of seeing his frame and whatnot, it wasn't so much just the weight cut. It was more the camp, because his weight cut wasn't ridiculous, because his weight was always very, very in check, because he would do... I follow a lot of fighters online. I know quite a lot personally. I don't know anyone who does more cardio than that man. I don't know anyone who has a bigger cardio base than that man. It is freakish. So when it was at lightweight, on one hand, he done that anyway in preparation, but on another hand, he would do it to maintain his weight. So we're talking a flipping 6-mile run, then a 10-mile cycle to training, then train, then cycle back from training, then go swimming. Just a ridiculous amount. So his commitment, his mindset, he is all in. He is absolutely all in. His whole life is geared towards this. He's the ultimate professional. He really, really is. So I was really happy to see him go back in there. And when I spoke to him the first time, he was actually one of the first fighters I worked with, actually. And I asked him, I said, I'm going to have to ask you the cliche question of the weight, because it's obviously just always on the tip of everyone's tongues, because he was taller than me, and he was a tall 6'3" as well.
He's a tall guy.
He was a tall 6'3". He wasn't a short one. He was a tall, long 6'3". And I just looked at him, I thought, I don't know how you make lightweight. But as he gets older, he matures into his body. I just think, yeah, that's definitely the right move, because now he can actually eat a little bit more in camp. Now he doesn't actually probably have to do as much road work. He still would do a lot, just knowing him, but he doesn't have to do as much to maintain the weight through camp. And there was a clear discrepancy between the grappling between them. So I actually picked him by a submission, objectively just looking at their skill sets. But he done well. He got the snap down, instantly got to the back, and as soon as his knees touched the canvas, that Lennis, I knew it was a wrap. I just knew he had nothing to hang with him. And Sam's tricky. He's got an awkward frame, and he's got good jiu-jitsu, and he does well, especially on the back. When he gets to the back, he more times than not finds that rear naked choke. So yeah, I was happy to see him get back in the column. Yeah,
guys,
I was happy to see him get back in there.
In jiu-jitsu, guys who were just long and got long legs and long arms, and they just wrap you up, and then they got your back. It's just like, well, trying to escape a body triangle when their leg is basically just goes across your abdomen, and you're just like, well, you're fucked. Once they got that body triangle on you, when they got such long limbs, it's pretty much impossible. It's difficult as is to get out of a body triangle, but when they can basically go round you twice with their legs because they're that long, it's so difficult. So I can empathize in that situation. But yeah, no, credit to Sam. I think he's looking very good. I don't know what you do next for him. I think it's a bit early to really start calling for anything crazy, obviously. But again,
I don't know if you can see that. But that...
No, I can't. You're frozen on my screen. But
the first page of the Casuals comic is the interview with him that I done.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very good.
So that's pretty cool. I think you're giving Philip Rowe next. I think that's the fight to make.
That's a good shout.
Yeah.
That's not too bad. Yeah, I mean, I'm
full of them,
Say again, sorry?
I'm full of them.
Full of what good matchups, yeah.
Just good matchmaking.
You're pretty good too, there.
You know what? I'll be honest. It's regurgitation. I just see different things online, and then I pick and choose what I like, and then I just regurgitate.
I would say this is just a weird tangent. I was watching a while ago. I was watching one of those on MMA on Point. They did like an MMA trivia thing. I don't know if you've seen that. I was a binge watch of loads of those things. Where they're like, it's really difficult MMA trivia as well. Like we're talking what card was this fight on, and they'll just throw a fight out from ages ago. And I was like, how the hell? And then Bailey, he was like do you know the guys from MMA on Point? He was like instant just responding with like, oh, this card. I was like, how are you doing that? And now I understand it, because after editing so much, you know exactly which you're taking UFC countdowns and different promos. You know exactly what fights are on what card, because you're going back to the same sources. So I can now tell you, not every time, but if you throw
UFC297.
Oh shit. Not the well there.
Here we go.
No, this is good. I like this. Let's do this. Oh, that's such a hard one. I know 268 was Usman Covington 2, but that's not 267. Fuck.
It's not what I asked for.
I know it isn't, and I'm annoyed.
Okay, so we've
Not a great start.
realised that you have no talent in that whatsoever.
No. What was it?
Okay, the person who actually can do that the best is Errol Hawani. He's freakishly good at it, and I have no idea how people do that because I genuinely forget what I had for dinner last night and 2 cards ago. I have no idea. Not just in MMA, just in more general. You're googling it now. I can hear you.
It. Blachowicz Teixeira. Oh, okay, that's a different. Yeah, I wouldn't have got that one to be fair.
You said
give me another one.
No, I'm not doing this.
One more for me. Come on.
254.
I think I've got no. I'm thinking. I think was it Adesanya Romero?
I don't know.
Oh, I thought you knew. That's what I'm saying.
I got a clue. I literally just told you. I can't remember what was last week. I cannot remember last week. I can remember.
No, Khabib. It was Khabib Gaethje, wasn't it? Yes, it was. I just checked. I mean, I was literally loading the page as I searched it, but I remembered it. Yeah, Khabib Gaethje.
I can remember one card, and that was the Abu Dhabi card, and that was just because I was there. That was the only one I can remember off the top of my head.
Valid.
That is literally it. But apart from that, I've got absolutely nothing.
That'd be something fun to do in the future, though. We should definitely do that, like a sort of trivia thing.
Do some form of quiz.
Yeah. I feel like you'd probably smoke me a little bit. I feel like you pull facts out of your ass. Do you know what I mean? I feel like you can do that. They're only the ones you're giving me, so I take that back. Do you want to have a look at 298? I know it's a little bit early for it, but we can.
Not really.
Not really.
No.
I don't know. MMA is such a weird sport. What about actually? We are a creators podcast in itself. So what about that? I mean, is there anything you want to touch on? I mean, obviously, I know you talked about your Amsterdam travels, but in terms of looking ahead, what's going on for you?
I've got the Thailand trip coming up, so I'm going to be creating a lot of content out of there. In an ideal world, I'm going to bounce around to a lot of different gyms, and do different pieces of content. But I'm also going to train when I'm out there, do some one-on-one sessions, make some content out of that, make some videos out of that, all of that good stuff. I'm going to do a lot of food content mainly. I'm sort of just curating it all now of how I'm gonna structure and play around with that. So that's the more immediate goal on that side. Before I went to Amsterdam, before I got on the plane, I actually spent all night because I wanted to get this done before I'd gone, and I didn't realise that they've actually installed the feature on TikTok. So I spoke before about there's this incredible new feature on TikTok where it allows you to add series to videos. So every video you post, you can add a link to that video which has a series on it. Now, a series is a selection of videos which are behind a paywall. So I
remember you mentioning this.
Yeah, you can create whatever you like. So if you're a fitness creator, that would probably look something like just a gimmicky title. It would probably be like how to get a 6-pack in 5 weeks, and there's 4 videos for it or whatnot, and it might be £1 or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of ones like that going around. But I didn't want to just put something out for the sake of trying to get a few people to buy it here and there and make a few pounds. Obviously, I want to make money from it 100%, but my goal really was to put as much value into these videos as I could possibly make. So I spent about 2 weeks curating, editing, and filming a complete series from start to finish of I call it volume 1 because I couldn't put all the information I wanted to in a video series just in one. There would be way too much. There's just way too much.
What's it on though?
So it's on, the title is How to Create an MMA Brand from Scratch and Get Big Opportunities in 2024, along the lines of that. And essentially what volume 1 is from the very, very beginning, day one, got absolutely nothing, how to curate, how to build, and how to build out an MMA brand in many, many different ways. and how to get opportunities from it, essentially. Because so many people would message me, so many people would be in my live streams. I want to do this. How did you do that? How did you get this? How did you get that? So I essentially sort of took all those questions that I got asked, and then I actually reverse engineered what I've done up until this point, and then I found a structure of how to teach people, essentially, how to there's about an hour of videos, right? So usually people have about 5 minutes of videos, but I'm not most people. I wanted to do this properly and I wanted to provide actual value. And I done it in slideshows on Canva. I'll go into the details of it because I may as well if people are listening to this. So on Canva, there's this incredible feature that I didn't realize, that where you create slideshows or just slides, they also now allow you to film and record in app with your face within the slides. So absolutely unbelievable. Neither did I. I'm sure it's on. I've got the premium. I'm imagining you can't have that on the free, but they do have it on the premium.
Canva's so good.
Unbelievable.
I'm just gonna have to speak on that.
Unbelievable. I am such a stan for Canva. I can't even explain. But what I did was there was so much information, I didn't even know where to start, really. So I bounced some ideas around with ChatGPT, and I helped sort of create a structure, a formula to sort of go, right, okay, this is module 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. And I started from the absolute ground, the absolute zero. And honestly, obviously I'm not just saying this, but it's so valuable. It's so valuable. And for the first time in a very long time, if not ever, I finished it and I watched it, and I created the slides and then I spoke over them in more detail. I finished it and I thought, I am so proud of that curriculum right there. Because if you are truly invested in creating an MMA brand, whether that's on the scale of just trying to build a small community so you can speak to like-minded friends, or if you want to scale to a flipping mass media outlet down the line. Obviously, this is on a more surface level at the moment because it's volume 1, but it goes into a lot of depth. But if you are someone that sits on any part of that bracket and you have no idea, this is literally all my life for the last 2 years. This is all the idiot tax that I've paid down so people don't have to. So much, and I've condensed it into about an hours of teaching with engaging slides, with examples, with graphics, so it's a lot more visually digestible. And all of that and broke it down into about an hour. And honestly, on TikTok series, they give you different payment options of how much to charge. And in all honesty, the maximum price was $29.99. And
I was going to ask you this.
If I could have charged more, I 100% would have. And that's not because, I'm just trying to make as much money as possible. It's because the value in it is
it's about the value.
Way more. If I could, in all honesty, I could be confident in charging £1,500 for it. I actually could. 100%. 100% I could be confident in charging £1,500 for it. Because if you actually go through that and you digest it and you actually listen to it, you interpret it and you actually reflect on the different talking points, it will save you £10,000, £20,000, £30,000 worth of time. I know that because I've spent 2 years making all those mistakes and doing all these things. So 100%. So the maximum value you can put on it is $30. So that's what I've done. And because with the pricing, right, we're getting into a bit more business here. But with the pricing as well, there's something behind the scenes with pricing psychology. If I were to price that at £2, £5, people subconsciously would
think it won't be very good. Yeah,
correct. They would have the value of £2, £5 when they're looking at it or when they're purchasing it. So I also needed it to be a higher price so people realise that this isn't just some scrunched together bit of information because I want to earn a few quid online and just chuck something out and see if it sticks. No, this is meticulous information that if you're actually serious about, when people reach out in my DMs, when people are in my live streams, if you're genuinely serious, you'll pay that absolute nothing price, which I think is about £20 or £25 or something along those lines. And there is a tremendous amount of value. So I know I went off into a bit of a side tangent.
No, I think it's interesting.
But I
As
said
well,
for
like,
a long time. Sorry, go on.
sorry. Okay, no, yeah, I was just saying, like, I was reading. I spoke before about a guy, Jamie Rawston on Twitter. He was a
Yeah,
former YouTuber.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Unbelievable content.
yeah, and he actually, he made a really good point. I think it was him. About just knowing your target audience and who to sell to, because I feel if you can sell a product to a handful of people, for for a large sum, you don't need a huge target demographic. You don't need a huge target audience if you're selling to the right people. It's just some interesting food for thought. Like, if you price something that high and it's catered towards those specific type of people, with that, those people who have large goals, large wealth, who are willing to pay that amount of money, then it doesn't matter about how many people you're selling to. It doesn't need to be thousands. It can be 10 or 20. It's just some interesting food for thought. But yeah, I think it's a great idea what you're doing. I thought about doing the same thing. I know you spoke to me about it a lot, and it made me do some thinking about maybe doing something for writing. But again, I don't feel like I'm qualified yet to
Let me
do
stop.
that because
Let me
so I
stop
don't
you
make
because
mistakes.
I've said this
Go.
before and I'll say it again. And I don't mean to interrupt. It's just because
Go.
you just said something there that just triggered a thought because it's a good point to bring up. So that's a very natural way to feel first and foremost. And the important thing that I'll preface is I've only included things that I've done and can speak about myself, right? So I don't speak about anything I haven't done. I don't speak about future things that I potentially am going to do and maybe this is how I'm going to. Absolutely not. I've spoke about everything that I've done, been in the trenches and actually executed on, and have evidence to show you that that's happened. So number one, there was a confidence from that. But number two, because of where I've literally that entire thing is all the infrastructure and all the base and all the foundation to sort of start building your house on, start building your brand on, if that makes sense. So I think there's so much information there that's important to build off. But why I say that is because by the time you get to the end of that course or the end of that curriculum, if you like, you should then be ready to start creating content. After all of that, just start creating. So it's even giving you all the information of just getting to that point at the start. Obviously, me, myself, as a brand, I'm way past the point of actually making my first piece of content. So I'm sort of ahead of the things I'm teaching, if that makes sense. And the reason I say that is because what I always say is I cannot teach someone at the moment how to turn over £1 million a year creating a media outlet just online. I can't do that yet. I haven't done it, haven't executed it. I can't do that. But I most certainly can talk to people that haven't even created their first piece of content yet. I am more than well equipped to have all the knowledge to give people that information. So I understand what you're saying, and I've said to you before, and I will say it again. You're thinking in your head of talking to a demographic which is not who you're selling the product to.
That's true.
You're not selling the product to these people of the idea that and the goal that you have. That's not who these are going to. You're talking to the Tom, Dick and Harry that wants to create a YouTube channel that has no idea about anything. You're talking to yourself 2 years ago. That's who you're talking to. You're not talking to anyone else. That's what you have to. Yeah, well, a year. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's so you have to. You're talking to that person, right? And it's the same for me. I'm talking to the person from myself 2 years ago, 36 months ago, and I can do that with so much conviction because I've lived and breathed it. That's what I'm saying. I'm not stepping outside of my parameters. So it was like personal training. When I was a personal trainer, I wasn't creating content for people walking on stage and competing in the Arnold Classic. I was creating content for people that didn't know about calorie deficits, for people that didn't know about fitness journeys, for people that didn't know how to control their eating, different things like that. You have to understand who you're actually talking to and who you're trying to reach. And I think that's an important thing. And just circling back to the actual product itself, is I always said to you I wanted to create a digitally scalable educational piece for certain, because that's the ultimate form of leverage, really. If you can create media like we do, that's the ultimate form of leverage, because when you create a video, when you create a YouTube video and you go to sleep, people are watching that. So essentially you're getting paid as you're sleeping. So that's ultimate leverage, right? Because even if you're a lawyer, even if you're a doctor, even if you're a dentist, really high paying jobs, you are not getting paid when you're not transacting your hours of work. If you're a labourer, you're not getting paid when you're sleeping. You're getting paid when you're pulling the bricks out of the van and putting them from point A to point B. That's a minimal form of leverage. So something like media, something that's digitally scalable, something that you create once and can be sold one time or a million times with no more amount of work, that's the end goal. So that's always really what I wanted to sort of strive and achieve for. And I kept looking at my analytics, especially now on TikTok, where I'm doubling down my output and I'm just going crazy. I'm getting 10 million people through my digital door each month. And I'm thinking,
yeah, it's so powerful, man.
I have to have a product at the end of this to leverage. I have to. So that's why I wanted to do that. And I've always wanted to do that. So yeah, that's sort of, I know that I got a bit heated on that point.
It's passion, mate. It's passion. It's passion.
Well, because I think it's important for people to understand, and not that I'm some guru, most certainly not, but the book by Naval Ravikant, and I'm very fortunate to have mentors that I can speak to who have done very, very successful things in business, who are 5-10 years ahead of me. I'm lucky that I can bounce those things off of people. So I'm lucky to have this information, but understanding leverage is so important. And essentially, that is actually where this course starts, is understanding what leverage is. And leverage essentially in the MMA space is opportunities. And leverage is essentially audience. The more audience you have, the more social proof you have, the more leverage you have for opportunities, in very, very simple terms. But in a more business sense, the more leverage you have, the more ability you have to earn money whilst you're quote unquote sleeping. Now, that isn't to say that there's no work involved. Oh, you can just get in bed and you earn money. No, it's ridiculous amount of hard work and a ridiculous amount of grind.
Of course.
But things like media, things like code, things like labor, even if you have, labor's not the best form of leverage, but if you have people working for you, you can increase your output without having to do more personally. So that's a form of leverage. Media is probably the best form of leverage, because I can make a video now, go to sleep, wake up tomorrow, and it's got 1.5 million views, which happened this week. So I can speak on that in a very, very fresh tone. So it's so important for people maybe that are listening to this to, yes, understand creation, yes, understand all of this. But if you want to think of it from a business perspective, you have to understand leverage. And if you want to create a living out of this and a career out of this, you have to understand how you can leverage your brand to create opportunities and to create income. And there's no better way doing that sometimes than a digital product that you can sell 100,000 times or 50 times, and you don't have to change the output of work. So yeah, ran over.
Yeah. Mic drop. Mic drop moment.
Mic drop.
Very good. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. I was going to touch on it, but you kind of said everything that really needed to be said there. No, I think you did a great job. Yeah, this has been the MMA Creators Podcast. I think we're on episode 34, 35. We stopped tracking.
7 months we've been going for.
As well. Yeah, 7 months. That's pretty well going.
It's impressive.
Yeah, we also have, I realized we haven't actually talked about this. We have a in-person guest for the very first time in a couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be very fun. No, I think we should leave that as a surprise.
No, absolutely terrible. Build up some momentum. Yeah, okay. 100%. What are you doing?
Yeah, why not? We are getting the editor for Logan Paul and formerly True Geordie, Gio. He is one of the biggest guys in the space, knows content creation like the back of his hand, and is a huge MMA fan as well. So we're going to have lots to talk about. That will be on February the 7th. uploaded sometime around there. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be very, very fun. As I said, this has been the MMA Creators Podcast. Can't remember the episode number. We will see you next Sunday.